We've got more of that interview on the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit on our website. Just head to NewMexicoInFocus.org. Give it a watch and then let us know what you think lawmakers should be considering to fix our education system. Now that we have all that background, let's dive into some of the proposals now circulating through the Roundhouse. And for that, we turn back to our line panelists. Let's start with an idea of a longer school year. One proposal adds three more days to the school calendar. Those 3 days would allow for more time for professional development, and supporters say also more classroom instruction as well. But it will also cost more money, Tom, and it's been a little squishy on the studies out there about the benefits of a longer school year or not. Interesting proposal. We have to start trying something. We all know that. We can't just do the status quo. Is this the right way to go, however?
I like the idea of more days, $18.7 million, to fund those 3 extra days. Not entirely a large amount when you compare it to the overall budget that is at play. What is concerning to me is that it's a tactic without a strategy. It's, hey, I know what we need. We need 3 more days. Okay, what's the strategy? What are you going to do with that?
Sure.
I don't know. We don't have an education secretary yet. We don't have an education plan. We just got rid of Park.
That's right.
So, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be answered, I think, before we can actually go through and have a further discussion to say, you know what, are the 3 days really that important, or do we need to do something with the other 180 first as far as restructuring accountability for parents, accountability for students and for teachers and for administrators as well.
Interesting.
So I think that it's good, it's therapeutic. Maybe it's just a little bit too soon in the conversation to say if it's worthwhile because you don't have a strategy behind it yet.
Right. Interesting point there just made, Martha. What do you think about this?
Well, I think that the schools are underfunded. The court clearly said that. PED claimed it was that they weren't responsible for the underfunding. That was the districts. The judge said no. You are responsible, and not having the money to do something is not an excuse. You've got to find the money. And to Tom's point, are we going to just underfund schools for 3 more days? Or are we going to figure out where the money needs to go, pre-K, ancillary services, ESL, and so forth, before we add more days to underfund?
Right.
And I thought it was interesting that the judge put out a whole list of where we're going to get the money.
Right.
And one of the first thing on the list was the severance tax permanent fund. Take it out of there. Well, interestingly enough, the governor in her State of the State didn't really mention how the education changes that were mandated are going to be funded, but she did say take some money out of the severance tax permanent fund to fund small business.
Wow.
So where are we going to use that money? Now, her proposal would require a constitutional amendment, actually, because there is a statutory or a constitutional limit on how much can be used out of that fund for small business. But I just thought it was interesting to juxtapose the very first thing on the judge's list with what the governor said she would do with that money. Now, the judge sent 11 more taxes that could be either invoked or revitalized or just raised. One was to do away with some of the recent corporate tax reductions, which I thought was interesting because we haven't seen any great influx of businesses coming in. We've had a few, but they don't seem to be tied really to the tax structure so much as what do we have for workforce? Do we have an appropriate workforce? In Netflix's case, we have infrastructure they're taking over. Didn't have very much to do with corporate taxes.
Interesting point, almost like a preemptive, taking all excuses off the table before the excuses can get to the surface. Exactly. Teachers will talk about, my ex-wife is a teacher, I've been around a lot of teachers. Professional development's a big deal for teachers. And they feel like this is a part of being a professional, basically. You're always climbing the ladder with your knowledge in a knowledge-based business. Does that have some sway with you on this idea of adding more days?
I mean, I think it plays right into what's already been said, that this is essentially a symbolic gesture, and it's a olive branch to the teachers' unions. But this point that we have to talk about revenues, it's awkward for that conversation to be coming from a state judge, from the judiciary. But the legislature needs to be talking about $500 million in spending going forward, recurring dollars. Where's this going to come from? It's going to come from somewhere. The money is fungible in the budget, but it's going to come from somewhere. And I think we're going to have to see this governor take a position And so far, I don't think she has taken a public position, but you can't do all this on the spending side and not talk about what you're going to do on the revenue side. There is a big push among some Democrats to increase taxes, increase the gas tax, increase the income tax, talk the corporate income tax. You know, somebody's gonna have to start having that conversation. I think the Journal had a good editorial in the last couple of days pointing out, let's just look back at the history. You know, we cannot close our eyes, we cannot blindfold ourselves to this boom and bust history, and it can happen really fast.
Yep.
And so everybody, we're awash in money this moment. We have to talk about the revenue picture.
Yeah, interesting point there. By the way, as we sit here taping, the governor has announced Karen Trujillo of NMSU as the new Secretary of Education. I don't know her or her background. We'll get that all figured out by the time we get to the show being aired on Friday night. But Eric, interestingly, when you think about the ideas to give individual districts, back to the idea of the school days thing, their own way of doing things, some local controls, so to speak. Does that open up another possibility that we just don't have a coherent strategy statewide if we're having districts sort of doing their own thing with this proposal, or is that that appropriate?
Well, you know, we have a very, as most folks know, we have a very unique public education system in the state. First of all, the way we fund it is unique. You know, we don't, you know, it's not based on what your local revenue base and property taxes, so that every kid, regardless of where you are, in theory gets the same amount of resources. Every district gets the same amount of resources. This is playing out really interesting ways because you have some really poor districts who, in theory, would be getting more resources because they're getting the same amount as an Albuquerque kid, but it doesn't always work out that way because of administrative costs and so on. So I am a fan of local control, and I think some of these issues are so fundamental to how we educate kids. So whether it's 3 days for more professional development, I'm a product of Albuquerque Public Schools, for better or worse, and my kids in Albuquerque Public Schools, my wife was an educator in Albuquerque, so I have a lot of familiarity with kind of really hands-on, how does this work for parents and teachers and kids? So anything we can do to give teachers and students more attention, more resources, more development, I think is a good thing, right? I mean, it might stink to say we have to, shorten people's summers, but I think if we're serious about funding, and to Martha's point, I think you got to fund it. If you're serious about it, not just some token amount. It's like if we're serious about raising the ante, let's take some of this $500 million we're talking about and really do it. By the way, one of the governor's proposals was K-5+, which is really targeted to kids outside of the normal school year, right? To really help this very small number of kids. This is essentially would take a couple of days and try to help all kids, right? There's always this tension between do we do it universally or do we do it just for the neediest kids, which is really at the center point of the Yazzie case, right?
Yeah, interesting point there. Now,
And could I just speak
please,
to it?
absolutely.
I think it's absolutely right. But when Eric says anything we can do, we can't do anything and everything. And so some of these really critical needs that were raised in the lawsuit, textbooks that are current within 10 years.
That's right.
And
Basic-
sharing textbooks.
That's right.
Yeah, so we've got to prioritize, and we can't just start throwing money at everything. It's already spent.
Let me stay with you, Justina. I want everyone to weigh in on this. The idea of a cap on charter schools. Is your child a charter school? Is your child
Well, he's
old
only
enough to be?
16 months old.
I lost
very
track of how old your
precocious,
child.
but,
Charter preschool.
I'm sure he's very bright, but
Well, I think
would you-
you
go
got to
ahead.
be, it's black and white. You're either
Okay.
all in or you're not. If you either believe that charter schools work and they help create, they help foment creativity and give parents choice, give families choice, and improve the overall school system, or you don't. And I think, a lot of people are threatened by the charter schools, other schools are going to fail. I totally oppose the caps. I think if we're going to have them, you have them.
They're thinking about 27,000, about 1,000 more than we have enrolled in charter schools now. It's interesting to put a number on a cap already, but your sense of it right off the top of this.
Well, I think what happened in California this past week is informative of this. They settled the strike. The school board in LA Unified is actually pro-charter.
Okay.
But part of the settlement with the teachers union was they now have to vote on whether to put a cap or keep a cap in California. But interestingly, they said this settlement is a move back to community schools and away from charters, because the line has always been that charters are better all the way around, and kids are getting shortchanged in the public schools. Let's look at the numbers here once again. In
We're about
New
a minute
Mexico,
off, so if you could-
the public schools, the charters are 8% of New Mexico public school students, and they get 55% of the funding.
Good point there. You're off the top reaction.
So charter schools is a good concept. I'm okay with capping them.
Okay.
Because I think you just need to readdress the whole system. There are some
see.
colossal successes and colossal failures with charter schools.
Yep.
Let's put the brakes on, let those who are good survive and really exceed. Those who don't, just kind of let the natural progression take care of it.
That's right. 30 seconds, the Yazzie Martinez case and charter schools, sort of any impact there?
Absolutely,
Okay.
because the folks who, I've been where they work, I don't think it's black and white. There are great charter schools that address the very kids that Yazzie was talking about. The Native American Charter Academy is a national model to charter school. South Valley Academy, which has dealt with immigrant kids, the same kids in this lawsuit, have done a really good job. Other charter schools, disaster, mismanaged, corruption. So I do think you can talk about them together, but the central issue in charter schools is, do they really compete for funding with public schools? The corporate sort of chain charter school, like the McDonald's of charter schools, we absolutely have to regulate those guys. But to say we're going to go after schools like NACA and South Valley Academy that are doing really, really great work with the very kids Yazzie's talking about, I think is a mistake.
Interesting point there. Now, we want to know what you think about the proposed education reform items. Drop us a line at NewMexicoInFocus.org or join our Facebook group, Focus on New Mexico. We'd love to hear from you.